Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Mark Steiner. It's great to have you all with us. There seems to be merger fever in the air right now. While Sprint T-Mobile may be on the rocks, UT Raytheon is forging ahead to create what could be one of the most powerful aerospace firms on the planet. It's even making Donald Trump nervous, talking about a threat to competition. Well, we're once again joined by Bill Black to explore the depth of what all this means. Why would Trump be opposed to the merger? What's the difference between a merger like this and the one that seems doomed like Sprint T-Mobile? And why is merger fever among our corporate giants so rampant, while the digital giants like Google and Facebook seem to be facing attack around the antitrust issues? And of course, even though Bill Black needs no introduction, he is the Associate Professor of Economics and Law at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, a white-collar criminologist, former federal regulator, author of The Best Way to Rob a Bank is to Own One, and of course, regular contributor right here at Real News. And Bill, welcome back. Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Oh, so what's your analysis of this merger and where it's coming from? I mean, the merger, the president of the company that's about to be merged said that this is all a great play for the United States of America, making us a better country, a much stronger country, and a country that's built on noble jobs. He said on CNBC, it's a win-win for all, he says. So talk about this merger. I also heard on Morning Edition the other morning where their commentator was talking about how this really wasn't so bad because these two companies actually do very different things, so there shouldn't really fear competition. It really isn't an antitrust issue, and it's not a monopoly. What's your take?
Okay, so first, that's the modern version, the Charlie Wilson, what's good for GM is good for America,
right.
And vice versa.
Right.
It isn't just good, it's noble, right? And it isn't an antitrust problem because, we'll get to that. Okay, so why did they want to do this?
Yeah.
Well, they want to do it for the usual bad reasons. One is that there are great advantages to becoming too big to fail. And a second is CEOs drive these mergers and CEOs get paid more money if they have bigger companies. So they love mergers and they love then the safety of mergers of too big to fail. And so, for example, I clicked on the Iowa coverage, and the Iowa coverage is all about what's going to happen to the plant in Iowa and how many jobs, and that's the only thing they care about, type of thing. And that's really the point. So these companies are so big that they have plants all over, not just the United States, but all over the world, and politically shutting them down or letting them fail would cause catastrophic political harm to their patrons. So when you get super big, it helps you. Second, they were already getting super big. Both of these companies, United Technologies and Raytheon, have been going through a whole series of mergers. By the way, with competitors, that thing that's not, that's supposed to be bad, and has been allowed. Third, UTC is a monster. It's a stupid collection of things that don't make sense. It's the old conglomerate type stuff. And that's back to why do you do those mergers? Because it's very good for the CEO, even though it's bad for the shareholders. So UTC was getting busy to divide the company because it was so impossible to manage. And it runs things like jet engines through Pratt & Whitney, but it also runs elevators through, Olin and such. So they were going to divide up and get rid of a bunch of these things from being under common ownership. And if you're going to get smaller, well, then you got to get bigger real quick. And so they'll, hive off some of these non-military things, and they'll create a super powerhouse, the number 2 military supplier in the United States, which is to say, of course, the world,
right?
Because we spend more on the military than, like the next 9 nations combined until very, very recently. And they want to be hot in the growing areas. And so Pratt & Whitney, for example, you have definitely, if you fly, you've flown with Pratt and Whitney
Right.
engines. And, if you are shooting missiles and using radar, and everybody uses radar for many of those missiles to guide them, that is Raytheon. So when you put those things together, there are huge competitive advantages to being able to say, we can create this combined platform for you to make these new highly integrated weapon systems where they're integrated both with the intelligence, the radar, and other forms of information. That's a Raytheon specialty. And then we can reach out and kill you at least 20 miles away, and that's the missile part. What else is going on? These are two really bad corporate actors, even for corporate actors.
Bad corporate actors? What do you mean?
Well, for example, UTC managed under the Obama administration, which refused to prosecute big business.
Right.
It got prosecuted because it illegally sold these super engines. They are, in fact, very good, to the Chinese in violation of the law, and they lied about it. And then when they got caught, they lied about it. Right? So they were like 6-time bad actors in a way that if there's ever a military conflict, we'll get American and allied troops killed. So this is not a good thing. Raytheon is infamous for selling the missiles that are used to kill civilians in Yemen,
right,
and such at the hands of the Saudis. So these are terrible, terrible political actors trying to get big enough that they won't fail, but also politically, they'll be so big in so many states. They'll be an important employer that they'll have the political support of all these politicians. And that means if you lose the bid, right, you don't make a very good quality product, suddenly Congress starts getting intervening and saying, well, you must develop the following product, right? And they've specified by statute. And that one just happens to be the place, that has more hometown jobs and is more likely to hire them as soon as they leave Congress as a lobbyist. And so it has all that incest is best stuff going as well.
So let me ask this question. So I want to play this. This is a clip of Donald Trump. And we should really explore how in this context, why he would, at least at this moment, appear to be opposing this merger and what you think this politically is all about. Let's listen to this.
I'm a little concerned about United Technology and Raytheon because one of the things that I bring up all the time, we used to have many plane companies. We used to have many. They've all merged. Now we have very few. We have, the two main ones, as you know, and you have Lockheed and you have Boeing and you have a little bit, some others, but a little bit. They've all merged in. So it's hard to negotiate when you have two companies and sometimes you get one bid. When I hear United and I hear Raytheon, which is another incredible company, the missile systems they make are incredible. When I hear they're merging, does that take away more competition? It becomes one big, fat, beautiful company.
Just the way you speak, I have to laugh all the time. I'm sorry. But but let's talk about
So let's talk about who is giving him advice.
Yes, who is giving him advice?
Who's his acting Secretary of Defense?
So tell us.
Where'd he come from? That'd be one of those competitors.
Who
of these folks?
The acting Secretary of Defense worked for who?
Where it came from one of the competitors.
Okay.
So who's whispering in Trump's ear?
Oh, okay. That I should have read that. I wasn't aware of that. That's right. Okay.
I haven't seen it in the press. But
right. Interesting.
There is that small little fact.
Right. And he responds to his whispers, obviously.
Well, sure. I mean, it's not like Trump knows something. Right? It's whichever of his cronies gets to him last. I mean, that's what's been said for years about Trump. And so there's a huge advantage. This is why sleazy people want to be in the Trump cabinet, because he has no real views. and you simply feed him information. And if you can arrange to be the last person to feed him information, then he will go adopt it as governmental policy. And of course, this advice can come from somebody who used to be a top guy at Boeing, or it could come from Putin. It doesn't matter.
Because, I mean, for a man who loves huge and beautiful things, I couldn't figure out why he wouldn't like this merger. So
well, that's sort of the point. You know, you can see parts of him are going, wow, this is so neat. And we could have a parade, and we could have a flyover, you know, and I could be celebrating it, and everyone would have photographs of me, and that would be cool. But that Boeing guy tells me maybe this is bad.
So in a more serious vein, in a sense, but this was still serious.
I'm actually dead serious.
No, I know. But so, what is the difference between what's happening with this potential merger and what seems to be a doom merger like Sprint T-Mobile? I mean, why in this merger fever we're seeing across the country? A, what's the difference here, and why are we seeing such a merger fever at this moment in this country?
Well, we are not seeing it just at this moment in this country. This has been the story of the last 40 years. I mean, fundamentally what happens is very right-wing economists, where there had been for 300 years an economic consensus against market power. About 40 years ago, economists started from the ultra-right wing saying, no, actually, monopoly doesn't cause any problems. Market power doesn't cause any problems. The real problem is the whiners, right? The people who are losing, and then they turn and they whine to the federal government, and they're just damn informers, and they give evidence, and then you bring a case against Microsoft, right? A real case, which, by the way, the government won in all of that. And so the problem isn't Microsoft preventing new products. The problem is that the government listens to whiners, to losers in competition, and therefore antitrust is actually a bad thing, right? We want pro-trust policies. And then in the context of much of Silicon Valley, it's married to this idea that there are, quote unquote, network efficiencies. In other words, the more customers you have, the more valuable it is to everyone to be on email, right? You wouldn't want an email system that only lets you communicate with 10 people. And so once you hit the ability to communicate to vast numbers of folks, well, then the market, that network becomes more and more valuable, and whichever company got there first will tend to expand and have massive market power. And they say, look, that's efficient, right? We want to have exactly that result. So again, we don't need to worry about antitrust. We certainly should stop listening to the whiners and losers, and we should support these kinds of deals. And so that is actually, that's contested within economics, but that is actually the slightly dominant view among most antitrust practitioners.
But there seems to be, we seem to be at a moment where a lot of mergers seem to be taking place, or that people want more mergers. And there's this whole question, so what is happening economically? What's happening?
Again, it's not economics. Why do CEOs that make mergers, not people, not boards of directors and such. And their key thing is, am I going to be the winner where I keep the job, and how big a raise will I get for putting together this kind of merger? And of course, I get a fat and happier life if I put potential competitors out of business by buying them off.
I mean, is it that simple that it's just about?
Not to like?
I mean, is it that simple that it's just? Is it that simple, Bill? That it's just about people at the head of a corporation wanting to make more money? I mean, is there nothing going on in terms of the stock market and where the economies of the world are that are affecting why we're seeing this seem to see this surge at the moment?
Well, again, the stock market is part of the way they get compensated through all of this, of course, that the stock market is going up. But if you're asking me, are all mergers bad mergers? Of course not. There are lots of mergers that are done that add to efficiency and such. Economists have never said that no business should be allowed to buy another business. That'd be stupid. But you're talking about the really big ones of entities that already have substantial market power.
Right.
And why would we allow them to get even more market power when we know that that is harmful? Well, first we need an economic ideology that says it's okay. Then we need an ideology that says it's illegitimate for the government to do much of anything. Then we need an ideology that says the victims aren't the victims, they're actually just whiners. And we should, not only ignore them, we should trample on them, desecrate their graves type of thing, and denounce them as failures. If you put those things together and you create these perverse incentives that I've been talking about, then you'll get lots of mergers that don't add to economic efficiency. They just make the CEO wealthier.
Bill,
they make all of us poorer.
Bill, whenever we have these conversations, I could go on for days and just keep going through this. There's so much here. Maybe we can pick up on this and more the next time. I really always enjoy our conversations and what you bring to us, Bill. Thanks so much for joining us once again today, as always.
Thank you.
And I'm Mark Steiner here for the Real News Network. Thank you all for joining us. Take care.